Dr. Bennett Bronson 1973, in the Archaeological Research Report in Sumatra, which was made 20 May to 8 July 1973. The research was conducted by the Indonesian National Institute of Antiquities and Heritage in collaboration with the University of Pennsylvania Museum, Philadelphia, USA. From the excavation of the mound in the area around the main temple of Muaratakus, they found a bronze artifact in the form of an elephant-headed human, besides a bronze mirror whose side is covered with gold with a presentation reaching 83%, meaning almost 24 carats. Another, Vajra, find, as well as an inscribed brick find that paleographically contains a mantra that reads, Om Abhinanta Kr Hum Fat Svaha. Inside the site, Kandi Bungsu, was found a copper box in which there are 3 gold plates that read 1. 2. 3. On the side of the box there is a cremation blade, sticks and weapons decorated with jewels on the right and left. The local language calls it oval sword Sulo. The 3 literacy of the word text. Om. Home. This is in Hindu Buddha, not only in one of them. It means that both Hindu Buddhist teachings were born outside the archipelago to use the same word. This is the word that comes from Dharmic original, which originated in Nusantara, Indonesia. This teaching is perfectly recorded in Bali. And Bali is not India. The 11th century AD was the time of saving the Dharmic original books out of the ranks including Tibet, Java and Bali. In the Aliantan area there is a term, Siro Batu, a form or arrangement of stones which in pre-Islamic times was used as a place for contemplation, or a place for samadhi tapo upasana. Namely the learning process, Dharmic original, in the region. The origin of this form is called Biaro. This was called by the previous society, Siro Batu, namely, Swaro, on a pile of stones that was often heard. The humming sound of the Brahmins, RSHI, masters who were doing spiritual contemplation. That is a humming mumble. Aum, or Aum. The literacy of the word, Siro, starts from the word, Swaro, or Suara, then changes to the word, Suro, which after Islam means a place of worship. This is the same function of the place as was done by our ancestors during pre-Islam. Sinking in, only the top of the pyramidal peak is now covered with 5 layers of red bricks by each generation so that it is shaped like today. Kadachuan in Katanka Hill is the center of government as the residence of the son of Mother Goddess, who in Maharajakan, the city area is within a radius of 75 kilometers, with the center of the holy city as the center of the puja, Mongtakui, near the place of learning or university. Every year 2,000 people come. So it is still recorded in the people's memory the story of this area from its predecessors that at the gate which is covered by a 7-layered buffalo skin base can be eroded by Habi, because people are crowded and busy arriving and then entering and leaving this area, namely the area, ancient ground embankment fence, the area of the holy city of pre-Islamic Kadachuan starting from the Basurat stone bridge area to the border of the Rokan with a population of 70 million people located between the surrounding hills. The market that provides necessities in the holy city, the smallest market covering an area of 38 hectares and a market which is currently covering an area of 68 hectares. Market or economic center named 1. Shanghyang Dui Puti Indo Jadi Market. 2. Shanghyang Dui Puti Indo Meta Market. 3. Shanghyang Dui Puti Indo Mayang Market. 4. Indo Dunia's Shanghyang Dui Puti Market. Kadachuan in the 7th generation of the original breed, there was a distortion of understanding of Dharmic, which leads to one godlessness and leads to collaboration with none other than God. Then at the request of Shanghyang Datu Prabu Sailandra, asked Solomon, send a messenger to straighten out the original teachings, which is to return to the teachings of one God. Which in the dialect in Kadachuan reads, Pakayo God Nan Oso Tiado Rupo, until now is still familiar in this area, then sent a messenger named Abdullah Author, to meet Shanghyang Datu Prabu Kusumajaya, after making the approach and efforts to straighten it with the result that only his mother and 9 people, Malam, returned to their original teachings. While Kusumajaya, his wife and children still did not want to. At this time a natural disaster occurred in the form of a devastating earthquake. Buried the Kusumajaya family and their families devastated by an earthquake measuring 9.8 causing the center of the puja to sink to the ground. The remains are only the top, which at that time was in the form of pyramids, which was formed from a large pile of stones as big as a cupboard, and in the center of the puja there was only one building which is now called Twa Temple. The 9, Malam, who returned to the original preceding teachings, during the disaster in Kadachuan were the Malam, Pra-Islam is advisor to Mother Goddess names recorded in the Pra-Srivijaya era before 78 AD are the Bathara Guru Rshi Masters of Dharmic original, among others. Malam Budi Simarlambu, in the hills of Simarlambu, the eastern corner of North Sumatra near West Sumatra, there is a blue lake. This is where Bathara Guru Brahman, Rshi, Malimbu, lives. Malam Liman, at the site of Gunung Tua, Padang Lawas the generation is, Mabaru, in the Hasabuan clan. Malam Demon, in Pekan Tua Baru. Malam Bandaro, Shang Hyang Prabu Dachuik Bandoo, in Mike. Malam Bunda Ratu Puti, Diagri Banda Dalam Luwik 50 Sabungsu. Malam Sadi in Batang Kapur. Malam Tintin or Malam Bongsu in Kampar. Malam Puti in Pagaruyang, Pariangan. In the 7th generation of this lineage was born the Pagaruyang Sultanate. In the pre-Islamic period the Datu were marked with colors in their clothes including red for the commander, green for the Hulubalang. In Javidvipa at different times with the same 2 names, namely, Shanghyang Datu Prabu Sailendra, the elder person was, Aji Soko. During the attack by Kola to Kadachuan there was a Datu shop named, Kusumajaya, who knew very well of Kadachuan because this was a place of learning. He was from Singosari who joined, Adityawarman, in the, Pamalayu, expedition to attack the Chola. Kadachuan was called or became named, Srivijaya, starting from the 4th century 58 years or in 458 AD, inscribed on the stone in the, Basurat stone, Banang, the naming term, Andiko 44, in the Srivijaya Kadachuan existed or was formed after the Islamic era of the 7th century AD. While the, matrilineal, or, matriarchate, system where the mother, Bundo holds power in the, Kadachuan, Kaha Ra Dachuan is a term in the Srivijaya Kadachuan that was used long before the pre-Islamic era. The Kadachuan governmental power system, the owner of power is called the word, Si Ampu, the Ampunya, Si owner, this designation in Minangkabau Sumbar is called, Bundo Kanduang, Tuan Gadia, downstream which is now published, Malay, in call the word, Puan, or, Empuan. In the system of government, matrilineal, matriarchate, at the center of the word, Si Ampu, the Ampunya owner, the pre-Islamic period was known as, Mother Dui, one of the names was, Shanghyang Dui Puti Patma. This name was recorded on the name of the river in the site area that used to function as a bathing place for pre-Islamic students Brahmin, namely the river, Om Padma Dui, or the river, Om Pama, Hingi, now the local people still call it the, Ampamo, river. The pre-Islamic era was known as, Mother Goddess, namely, Shanghyang Puti Nan Batago. This term is still recorded in traditional stories as well as the name, Shanghyang Puti Nan Batago. They include 1. Shanghyang Puti Tuo. 2. Shanghyang Puti Tonga. 3. Youngest Shanghyang Puti. 1. Shanghyang Puti Tuo, has the name, Shanghyang Dui Puti Sangka Bulan. The building is in East Pasaman, Gunung Tua, Aceh. 2. Shanghyang Puti Tonga, has the name, Shanghyang Dui Puti Galang Gumalo, in Kuala Partamuan. 3. Shanghyang Puti Bungsu, has the name, Shanghyang Dui Puti Lindung Bulan, in Kuala Amban. Once a year in their heyday the 3 of them gathered at the center in a pre-Islamic puja center called, Mongtakui, was built after, Muotakui, then became confused after the invaders until now it became, Muaratakas. This confusion continues in the next term, namely the group and named themselves as the, Malay, tribe, giving the name, Marotakas, those calling as, Minang Kabao, giving the name, Marotakui, the word, Takas, is the name of the river today which is 35 kilometers long, formerly called a river, Tuik, by the local community. This is a short term for the word, Pertiwi, which comes from the pre-Islamic naming, Bundadui Partavi, here no website. The Kadri system in which the holder of power is a woman, namely, Si Ampu, while running the wheels of government is from the husband of his child or nephew in the post-Islamic period called, Niniak Dachuik, until now in carrying out the duties of the, Niniak Dachuik, by some, Datu, who work according to the task with the title. 1. The Ampu. 2. Hulu Balang. 3. Penglimo. 4. Clever. 5. Malam, advisor to Niniak Dachuik. The name, Kato Tuo, in the center of Kadachuan, which is now at 13 Koto Kampar, has existed since the early days of Islam from Malam Putia, Kato Tuo. The initial name was called Kako Nan Tua, which was known as Sobe Nan Alui, later published Sobe, from the word Sobaria, whose pre-Islamic name is called Shanghyang Dui Puti Sobe Nan Alui, nephew of Indra Brahman, whose mother is the eldest brother of the third generation, Shanghyang Dui Puti Sobe Nan Alui, 7th century 27th. His son converted to Islam to Abdurrahman. The 7th century 40th century continued. Buyang Malam was cut off by the Kola invaders and the Dutch continued after Aditya Warman. Lantigo, in Kampar now called Muaratakas village de Groot calls, Lantigo, written Alahan Tigo, interpreted near a hill, 1889 written in Tombo, with Marotakui. In 1882-1889 Yazarman made a drawing the foreground plan of the Tuo Temple, Malagai Stupa 1921-1922 year. Krometh current situation of the Tuo Temple has been piled up with the ground, namely when 17 envoys of the Datu as negotiators were slaughtered and burned, then just piled up on the base of the Tuo Temple, and until now, the place has been published as a cremation place, as well as a background for the Kamdi Malagai Stupa on which the youngest temple was built. De Groot researches, draws and writes without labeling the object under study, such as the sentence written at the end of his report paper as follows. I do not make any judgments on what is conveyed, and the image has value for ancient knowledge. I give the explanation for what it is, without drawing any conclusions. I hope that knowledge of the existence of these ruins, in this remote place, can be of use. De Groot, on the 16th of August 1858 I entered Tanjong village, which is located in 13 Kota, a different area bordering the collapsed Batang Kampar cliffs around Jandi Kampong. From there the ruins of stone structures can be seen. There is a path from there, and some distance away, to the river. I went down to the right bank of the river in the village of Alahan Tiga, on the map of the west coast of the government of Sumatra by L.W. Beharing called Alahan Tiko, where Dato lived in the loyal Balay Datu Dubalai, from Rokan to the east of the Rao area. The mention of the word Rao proves that Alahan Tiga is now in the upstream of the Kampar River, 13 Koto Kampar district, not Alahan Tiga, which is in Lower Gumanti Salak, West Sumatra. At Alahan Tiga I was given information about the so-called Jandi settlement, that I knew it was a remnant of the past. They called it Jandi city, and stated that it was a lost glory, remnant of Sumatra. Since it was not yet evening and we had already completed half a day of our trip, I decided to see Jandi city. I have mentioned before that the red stones used in Jandi city are made by roasting, because I have heard several times about old rocks and similar old stones which are made by simply drying. I do not make any judgments on what is conveyed, and the image has value for ancient knowledge. I give the explanation for what it is, without drawing any conclusions. I hope that knowledge of the existence of these ruins, in this remote place, can be of use. The above sentence is what de Groot wrote without labeling what was in the picture, and he wrote, Hindu, Buddhist. So from all the research other than de Groot it does not seem consistent with one of them, whether Hindu, Buddhist. Balai Mabao is in the background near the court building and the legal area of the beheading. Here there is a temple that was dismantled by red bricks with plates and copper powder taken for recovery of the main site, and the rest of the excavation has been left with holes. The area of the main core zone in the holy city of Kadachuan is 16.7 hectares of the holy city with a radius of 220 kilometers, a center of puja and educational facilities covering an area of 75 kilometers. To take holy water to perform rituals at the center of the puja is called Talago Suki, or Talago Bunda Dui. The surface of the well is currently covered with water if the Kampar River overflows from the hydropower plant. This location and place is now called by the community as Well of Prohibition. Quote, in an area slightly inland there is a red brick box building. This building is a relocation site which is located on the opposite side of the Kampar River, right straight from the Talago Suki, which is called the Duck Temple. In pre-Islamic times was the place or cage of ducks from Mother Dui. Across the Kampar River there are 9 temple-shaped sites with one background. The holy pre-Islamic, Dharmic original, ritual in SRIVIJAYA district. Before performing the sacred rituals, the Brahmin performs 1. Cleanses the body. 2. Prepare yourself with special clothes. 3. Walk towards the ritual location. 4. Arriving at the location to pay respects. 5. Carry out rituals. The holy ritual is carried out in the morning, namely reciting the salvation mantra. At dusk before night does it again. The sacred ritual around the object in the Kadachuan is circling the object. The current temple complex is outside the stone fence which was previously high above the head. Moving circling the site to the right is the opening, to the left is the closing. This ritual movement is identical to the opening and closing of the bolt on the nut, with an odd number of turns 1, 3, 7, 9 and 13 turns. The sacred ritual surrounding this object was later known as Pradaksina in Buddhism and Prasawiya in Hinduism. Samadhi is an educational process in the Dharmic ritual. The origin of the word Bersama, diri to know God. Literacy of the word God existed before Islam in Kadachuan. This is not Hindu-Buddhist teachings but these teachings that underlie the growth and development of Hindu-Buddhist teachings in India. The center of the puja, which is now called the Muaratakas temple complex, in pre-Islamic times is a sacred area. Besides a place for holy rituals, it is also used to carry out, taking blessings and endorsements. 1. Welcome and release of the Datu. 2. Release of the Brahmin, who finished education, graduation. 3. The place for swearing in the title Datu Rshi Raja Vanua. 4. Place of coronation, title of top leadership of the country. Persumpahan, Kadachuan SRIVIJAYA, the Talaga Batu inscription which has a carving of 7 dragon heads at the top of the inscription. The Persumpahan section is written under the dragon's headdress. At the bottom of the plane that is written there is a water channel. What influence does the water have? Metaphysics comes from the Greek language, which consists of 2 words, namely meta and physika. Meta means after or behind something and physika means real, concrete that can be measured by the reach of the 5 senses. The name, metaphysics, was given by Andronikos of Rhodes in 70 BC on the works that were compiled after the physics book. It was not because of physics that metaphysics existed, but coincidentally because the physics book appeared, the term, metaphysics, was published. Meta means after or behind something from physika that cannot be measured by the reach of the 5 senses. In the previous archipelago scientists it is called, Klenik, or, old science. Klenik is also associated with many things that cannot be understood by reason but believed by many people or called superstition. In English is called superstition, is something that is considered based only on imagination alone. This is because something, unlogic, is difficult to reason. Klenik, in the indigenous cultural traditions of Indonesia, in this case the Javanese culture, is something that is hidden, or something that is kept secret from the public, because it requires deep understanding to be understood. In Javanese culture there is a science called old science. That is knowledge that is taught to those who are already mature in their consciousness. This is intended so as not to be misused or misinterpreted. Such knowledge is called klenik. This term is now another distorted teachings or religion. The truth can only be understood by those who pursue higher knowledge. In Islam it is called makrifat. For ordinary people, the truth of religion is quite believed. This is what is called klenik, not magic or duality, hyang widi tunggal. The concept of identity is important because it explains that reality has a limited nature, so it is possible to know. Likewise, SRIVIJAYA identity, which together with its name attaches the sentence, curse, written on the inscription. Where and what is SRIVIJAYA? Why is there curse enshrined on the inscription? Curse is an incident where the curse maker has reached the level of mature in his consciousness, or it is called makrifat. For ordinary people this truth is unreachable. How can a curse happen? For the transgressor, curses can happen. In physics we can be terminated by the law of energy resistance, that energy remains, cannot be created and destroyed, but can be converted into other forms. So, swell curse is the energy converted by the curse makers which remains as long as this universe exists, is constant. How or where is the location of learning to reach the level of human maturity in consciousness, or it is called makrifat. So as to be able to make or mark an area by writing a warning on an inscription stone. In South Sumatra around Palembang Marode Jambi there are Gumpung temple sites, Candi Tinggi, Candi Gedong Ian 2, Kudatan Temple, Astano Temple. This is a place of learning, Dharmic, marked with buildings made of red bricks and black stones in the archipelago. This is not Buddhism, learning center. Chinese pilgrims are here to study, not to bring teachings from their country to spread here. Palembang was not the center of the previous, Buddhist, teachings. Make no mistake, in the pre-Islamic period there were no recorded Buddhist missionaries as well as Hindus coming to Nusantara bringing teachings from India to the archipelago. But they came here bringing teachings from here to their country. Sangharama University, Dharmic, Learning Center in Svarnadvipa named Dharma Phala, in the location of the Holy City, which is the center of the puja and the coronation place of the Dachuik, as well as the king of the Vatsal Vanua Mandala named Muotakui, is now published as the site of Muaratakas, in Kodo XLLL District, Kampar Riau Regency. Niniak Dachuik Gaho Dubalai, successor to the Srivijaya Kadachuan. Srivijaya is not in the form of kingdom, but Kadachuan, and if there is the name of a figure in Srivijaya with the word Raja, it does not mean he is king in the general sense of a king who sends his power to his son. The Kadachuan government control is the husband of one of his daughters. Si Ampu, who is called Dachuik, who carries out government, and Adat is assisted by several Dachuik, including Si Ampu, Commander-in-Chief. Malam, clever. The word Dachuik is only in the central Kadachuan area, outside of this it is called Datuk, and Dachuik, namely the leader of Vatsal Vanua Kingdom. Vinanga Katua or Minanga Katwa is a Kadachuan region which is headquartered in Katanka, a location in the Katanka hill of its territory, marked Koto, which has number at the center of the item with 13 Koto. Srivijaya Kadachuan with the matrilineal system, namely the holder of government control was continued from the mother lineage which was called Si Ampu. In pre-Islamic times it was called Shanghyang Dui Puti, in the Vatsal Vanua Kingdom area this was called Bundo Kanduang, or Ratu, with the term K Rachuan, Keratin. The central, Kadachuan, when called and known as Srivijaya, is 458 AD pre-Islam, marked by the construction of a tower in the center of the puja which is now called Malagai Stupa Temple, in the estuary Takas Temple complex. Which made him not Babylonian, Indian or anything else. The initial site is what is now called Twa Temple. It existed before the time of Solomon as well as before the global disaster of Noah's flood was built by the pre-Srivijaya ancestors of the Indonesian nation. The current form is 5 times overlay with red bricks of 5 generations of his predecessors long before Christ. Then the Kadachuan in the post-Islamic era, namely the 7th century, 20th century, when the leader of the Kadachuan was named Shanghyang Datu Indra Brahman, at the initiative of Si Ampu, Shanghyang Dui Puti, was the 3rd generation ordered to write a letter to Caliph Umar bin Abdul Aziz, to the Umayyad Caliphate whose capital is in Turkey. The letter is still stored in the Turkey Museum. Sangharama branch in India called Nalanda, branch in Javadvipa named Wana Chaka Phala is now published as Borobudur. This is the place to study the teachings of the archipelago ancestors of the Sailendra dynasty, in the pre-Islamic era long before Dharmadasa 700 to 620 BC. Dharmapala 670 to 580 BC. Suvarnadvipa Dharmakirti 610 BC 520 BC. Kumarila Bhatta I 618 to 540 BC. Adi Sankara 569 to 537 BC. Kri Janayasa 6th century AD. Original Dharmic, which produces graduates with quality like the aforementioned, and those graduates go on a holy journey, Siddhartha, bringing Dhamma, throughout the archipelago is perfectly kept in Bali. This, Dharmic original, became the forerunner to the birth of the teachings at a later date. In 563 to 483 BC, was born Siddhartha Gautama, the figure of Buddhism. In 549 to 477 BC, was born Mahavira, the figure, Jainism. In the 9th century AD, the British era in India was born a religion that did not originate from a founder or one point in time as other religions to distinguish neither the two before nor Islam.